I'm Alexandria Kenyon, spiritual mentor and your host of Conscious Connection, a podcast where we create space for humanness within spiritual development. Me and my When She Feels Like It co-host, Kimber Klein, are giving you a real behind-the-scenes look of what it is actually like to be on a spiritual development path. We will talk with coaches, healers, and other spiritual leaders who are making impact, as well as our clients who will share their real-life experience as they practice owning their intuitive gifts. Stick around for unfiltered conversations that may or may not poke fun at New Age spirituality, giving you permission to show up imperfectly human. Oh, I guess we can just... Okay. Yeah, I'm getting it together.
Is it my robe?
It's literally your energy right now, and I love it.
This is mountain Olivia.
I'm fucking obsessed. Okay.
This is like Olivia who doesn't live in an inundated city anymore. I'm so chill.
I want to get into this. So let me just introduce you so we can drop right into like the way that your energy is running living outside of LA.
Cool.
But let me introduce you first. I am here with Olivia Rae, spiritual mentor, my personal mentor, and all other things that I'll let you describe kind of what you do. What do you do?
I love that you're asking me this question right now because we've worked together so much, so you know exactly what I do, but I, for a long time, didn't know what I did. Just was like, I'm pretty good at like helping people and like you could work with me. And Alexandria was like, let's do it. And I was like, okay, cool. And now I'm at this point where I have almost a full roster of clients that I'm working with weekly. And it really is just meeting with people and helping them find themselves again, which sounds so simple, but it's not. It is and it's not, right? It's a process of being able to really like acknowledge what is alive in your energy field, because I mean, if you're listening to this podcast, you can feel it anyway. So giving it a voice, and in my work, that often looks like me describing it, and the person who's receiving the work is able to validate what they've already known. And as soon as you accept that it's there, the energy moves. So I really spend a lot of time just holding space for people to accept themselves. That's what my work is.
No, that's actually perfect.
Yeah.
That's like I think that's the most perfect explanation. We've been working together for over a year now.
That's crazy. Wow.
Who am I right now? So different. So different.
Wow. Yeah.
Well, it's not even like describing it as different. It's more of describing it as like I'm me.
You're
me.
just more, yeah, because I'm sitting here and I'm like, I don't necessarily feel that way. And I was like, wait, but I don't want to invalidate the growth that you're experiencing, but it's like, it's because I've always seen you, as the you that you are now. I've always just seen that. So like, to me, I'm just like, no, you're just like more authentic, maybe would be the right way to put it.
Yeah, it's more like that the external mirrors the internal, and yeah, more authentic. Yeah. Still fun.
Still a blast, but just more authentic.
A fun time, but more authentic. When we started working together, I was like at the lowest point of my life. Like in quotes, like, right, who's to say? But I was at a really, really difficult transition getting here to Asheville, which you just moved to the mountains, and I want to talk about that. I had moved to the mountains and I was getting a full mountain initiation, being away from, I had already lived in a small town, so it wasn't like I was in the city, but coming to Asheville is, they say it's like trial by fire. It's a really fun initiation. We're sitting on mountains that are like quartz, and the amplification of this energy and the vortex and all that fun stuff calls in some really interesting energy. And I'm really grateful for connecting with you and I often think about it because I was like, my really, really dear sister Peyton found you on TikTok.
You
And
found me. Yeah. And there's, yeah, like, and now I work with you and all your friends.
I so if I'm like lensing this through human design, Peyton is a 2/4, Kimber is a 2/4, you're a 2/4, I'm a
So
2/4.
weird. That is so weird.
So there's this weird fourth line thing that goes on where it's like, okay, Peyton is telling me, but I'm not going to initiate something until I'm ready. So she told me about your breath work for a while. And I was like, stop, I'm not doing this. And then I finally was like, oh, my idea. I was like, I need some support. And then it was available. And I just think it's so, so divine, right? Like I didn't even have TikTok, so how would I have found you? But like the way that it's all orchestrated is always a fun time for me.
I
But
remember the first time you came to a breathwork class with me because you messaged me after and you were like, oh my God, you were like, I didn't think anyone could hold space for me like that. And like you held it and I felt so safe and I was able to really go there. And I was like, oh my God, this girl's so cool.
wait, stop. I was like, so I had taken breath before. It wasn't my first breathwork class, but it was like very structured. It was like, okay, we're going to do a 2-part breath and we're going to do it for 20 reps. I was like, ew, no. And so when you were like, we're just going to breathe, let it flow. I remember, yeah, there was this level of safety. I think intuitively I knew I wasn't going to get hurt. It was like this safety to drop in. I remember like literally screaming for the first time. And at the time when we connected, I would say that I was under a lot of energy that wasn't mine. And I remember your breathwork class was the way I started to move that energy out of my space and find myself again. I was not well at the time.
Yeah.
And wait, stop. You thought I was cool? I was like, this
Yeah.
woman's so cool. Okay.
No, I'm like literally the nerdiest person ever. I remember that being an experience on TikTok when I was really going viral on TikTok, and I was like, people think I'm cool. Like, what the fuck? Like, what? I was like people would comment, like people would like fangirl over me, and I'm like, what the fuck? It was a weird experience.
I can understand that too, because, you know, like you're mirroring them like neutrality and love. So they're like, yeah, like that would make a lot of sense. And also like you're fucking awesome, regardless of the spiritual gifts. Like
I showed up in my robe today and Alexandria was like, this is gonna be on camera. And I was like, perfect.
You showed up and I was just dying laughing. I'm gonna use it as my amusement picture for the class about the third eye and crown later. So
yeah.
I'm gonna die laughing when I just see you sitting in a robe and I'm just like, oh, I didn't tell her this is video. And you're like, yeah, it's fine. Love that. I love that.
I've been
so
at the
much.
pool all day.
Honestly, like, okay, so tell me, like, how is mountain living?
Yeah, well, you know, for people who don't know anything about my background, I was in Los Angeles for the last 8 years. I did my entire psychic training in Los Angeles. I learned to be a professional psychic in Los Angeles. So I've been feeling the craving to move beyond that for a while. And my partner and I had this really magical experience of going camping in the area that we're now living in. And it was just like, we need to be here. And through a series of one home that we didn't get and then the home that we're now in, we were kind of like, if it's meant to be, it will be. With this house that we're now living in, I was like, if we don't get it, then like I can't go through the emotional exhaustion of like getting excited and getting devastated again. So like we're just gonna have to pause. And there were so many people interested in this home, and somehow on my partner's 30th birthday, we got the lease agreement from the landlord, and we were like, we got it. And then we were like, oh my God, we're doing this. And now we've been out here for 2 weeks. So it's still very fresh, very new. I do feel like I'm still detoxing on a certain level from, you know, like the pollution physically and also psychically, like all like, you know, 8 million, 10 million people in one area that I was living in. Like it was a lot. And I'm now able to process some energy that I couldn't really get to there. And I'm just starting to get my energy back. I would say it's been about 2 weeks. And like, I was exhausted for the first week. I was so drained from the move and just everything, and such a big change. One of the things that's been really interesting that I think people would be interested to hear is I have had to separate from the games of Los Angeles. And what I mean by that is like, I've had to really work through the energy of like feeling like I'm missing out by leaving the city, feeling like I, am, giving up on like some amazing accomplishment by like living in a 2-bedroom apartment in Los Angeles with no nature and so many people around us. It was interesting to like really see that that was like alive in me, even though I'm someone who is very much like, I love nature. I love to be by myself. I love to be like out in peaceful areas. Leaving the city really was this moment of like, oh my God, like I'm not an LA girly anymore. I can't just like go down the street to Erewhon. Now I have to drive an hour and a half if I want to go to LA, which like it's still, I'm blessed. I'm only 30 minutes from the city still. So like I can still be an LA girly, but that game energy of like, oh, you're leaving the city and you're missing out, that was not me. And I could see that it wasn't me, but I still had to like really go through the emotions that were coming up so that I could decide and choose that they were not me and place them out of myself. So it's been an intense experience, and I feel like I'm just now settling in, and I'm like going to the pool in the mornings and like not even, I haven't gotten dressed at all in like real clothes today. So I feel good about the choice that I've made here.
I bet your grounding cord is just like thick. It's like,
yeah,
I'm here, I'm supported. Yeah, I can definitely understand how LA would have that kind of energy of like, here's your dream, and like, here's the only way that you're gonna, like, it's that Hollywood dream energy. Like, here's the way that you're going to, the only way you can achieve success, right, is like by struggling.
yes,
By struggling with
exactly.
everyone else. It's such a
Exactly.
struggle. Leaving California for me, living in Orange County, different energy for sure. What's the best thing I've ever done? Because Um, yeah.
I mean, I love it here. I won't lie. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I'll ever leave California. I've just found my little mountain retreat space, and that is a hint for what's coming in the future. Retreat space.
I'm ready.
So
I've
I
been
don't
on
know.
board.
I'm like here. But yeah, it's very much the struggle of Los Angeles is very much something that's real as someone who was not even struggling anymore. I still could feel all of that energy leaving my space of like being like, oh, I don't have to like hustle all the time. I don't have to constantly be going in order to be worthy, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. What a massive shift. I mean, or even subtly, like,
it's been interesting because it also correlated a lot with two significant shifts in the psychic training that I do. One being when I stepped into the 5-year program that I'm in now, I had just moved to the house that I just left, and I'm about to graduate into the next level of that program. And in that period, I moved to a new home. So I'm also just like on a spiritual level reflecting on that, and I find it very interesting that as I've taken really big steps in my psychic training, I'm physically relocated as well.
wait, let's talk about that. Hold on. I moved into this house the week Energy Matter started.
Interesting. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, a move is really such a pinnacle moment in energy work. I think it just represents so much, and I didn't even know I was working towards this. Like moving, even the idea of moving and the move itself all happened in 2 months. Like 2 months ago, I had no idea that there was this mountain town that I was in love with and wanted to move to.
I know. I
So it
remember
happened so quickly.
we were literally walking in LA. It's the first time I met you in person. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, we had like a little lunch
Ladybird
moment.
Cafe. I do miss the LA food. I can't lie.
And we were walking and you were like, wait, hold on, let me look at this rental. We were like walking down the street because you're like, like I'm just gonna, yeah,
I was
like
so over my apartment and I was
yeah,
really like looking for something to upgrade to. But like the housing market in LA is gnarly right now.
yeah. Same here in Asheville. It's kind of dying down, thank God. But yeah, even with all of my powerful energy tools, manifesting this house was still, yeah.
Yeah, we had, I mean, I remember you manifested like close and then you had to rework. And then you messaged me and you were like, Olivia, I got the house that I saw in my visions.
I know. It was like
That
probably
was such a great message to get.
the coolest manifestation I've ever had because I actually got to work the energy of it.
Mm,
And, when we're calling in, let's say what we desire, we go through kind of this process of like refinement too. A lot of it is saying no to what's not it. We'll get
yeah,
close. I got close
yeah.
a couple times and my intuition was like, this house is
Mm,
brown.
mm.
This
So
isn't.
good because I feel like that's where so many people get stuck in the process of manifestation is in settling
Yes.
and not trusting themselves enough to say no to the thing that they can feel as a no, but that they're maybe limiting beliefs or so many levels of like energy that really is just not us will come up and convince us that we should just settle because like it's so much better than what we had, but it really is like such a particular skill set to be able to say no and wait until what you really want arrives, and you have to work through so much energy that is not yours.
It's intense. It's
Yeah.
intense. I remember moving into this house. So I gave myself a couple days to really process it. And I remember all of the like worthiness pictures that I had to work through. Like, you're
Yeah.
not worthy. My house is like a literal like 5-star Airbnb. It's so nice. It's like my heaven on earth.
Crazy.
And I was like, am I worthy of living here? Like that's what came up for
Mhm.
me. And I was like, it's exactly what you wanted, but like you've got to match the energy.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's been a dream come true because it's really been quite a safe place for me to go through psychic training. And for those of you listening, Olivia is my mentor, and she went through the same psychic training program as me. And that is how I found Energy Matters.
Yes.
And I'm almost halfway through. I realized this. I was
Wow.
like in the grocery
That's
store
wild.
with Kimber last night, who is my roommate and best friend. And I was like, I'm fucking done with this. And she was like, how much longer do you have? I was like, 6 months.
And if you're crazy like me,
5 more years.
then you go into a 5-year mediumship program. And you are
You
crazy like me, so I
you
know you're
know
going
I'm
to.
crazy. I've mocked it up. I've mocked it up. I can't just like not see Cody.
Is it weird if I eat mangoes on camera?
Like, please do this. I love you. You are such the divine feminine right now, and I'm so here for it. Yeah, no, I definitely, we'll see. I'm definitely gonna need to take a break though. Holy shit. Like, can you
Oh,
like,
I took like a year. I took
how
like a
do we
year in
explain
between.
this?
I need a more specific
Like,
question.
how do we explain the initiation and transformation that is Energy Matters? Because when I say I'm in psychic training, I want to explain to people that I'm going through a literal quantum reprogramming every week. And it's not just like energetically, it's also sometimes physically.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so how would you explain, first of all, because this, okay, so Energy Matters is a psychic training program, and they have a year program, and you're kind of working through the basics of reading and or healing, becoming a certified reader and such. But it's so much more than that.
Yeah.
It's not really ever even has been about that for me.
Yeah.
What was,
Well,
yeah.
so to me, like the most incredible thing about Energy Matters is the practice spaces and Energy Matters is based on a lineage of psychic training that was started by Lewis Bostwick. And one of his, most unique offerings in what he created with psychic training is the ability for readers to sit in a line, which means psychic readers sit in the line together. And I think you're about to step into this space. Psychic readers sit in the line together and they all match at a neutral frequency. And then they set the energy of the reading and they hold that frequency together as they're all looking at the same energy. But every psychic is so different because we all have a different background in history. So we're all going to see different angles of that same person that we're reading. Like there's a line of readers here, and then there's a person in front of the readers that's receiving the reading, which often results in a healing as well, even though in what you're practicing with Energy Matters, you're really just reading the energy that you see. So this ability for multiple readers to sit in a line and have the same tools that allow them to conceptualize reading the energy and then to take all these different aspects of what everyone's seeing in that line and kind of like package it into like the most neutral offering for the person who's receiving the reading is exceptional. Because I think the issue with, and it's not an issue, but I think the place where there's not as much awareness in psychic spaces is that it's very easy to get stuck in your own picture when you're reading someone else, and then to kind of read everything that you're seeing in that person's energy field through your own energy, through your own picture. So when you do this practice over and over again, I did hundreds of readings in Energy Matters, going on Thursday nights and like sitting in a line and reading together. When you do this over and over again, you eventually, and this is a really important factor in working with energy on any level, the more you do it, the more you recognize the subtle differences in how different levels of energy work. And this is really something that, it's going to be different for each individual because you're going to perceive the energy differently. So it's not something that you can like shortcut. It's a practice. It's something that you learn by showing up to that space and like experiencing what it feels like to get stuck in your own picture and to like go through the emotional turbulence of trying to read someone when you're stuck in your own projection of what that energy is. It's so uncomfortable. And what happens is eventually, and we call it this in, this psychic training, we call it blowing a picture. Eventually, you're going to get uncomfortable enough to blow that picture that's causing you to perceive the emotion, which is just the energy in motion, to perceive the movement of the emotion as something negative. So when we have an emotional movement and it's something that we don't like, right? It's a perceived negative emotion. It's because we have a picture, we have a projection about that energy. So when you break it down to the most neutral level of like your emotion is energy moving through your body, and then you have the tools to pull out the pictures that cause you to kind of relate to that energy, that emotion in a way that you don't like, that doesn't feel good, you become very fucking powerful. Like there's no other way to put it. You become so powerful because no matter what shows up in your reality, you can decide that if it doesn't feel good, you want to change it. And I think that is really the beauty of the way that Energy Matters sets up their training.
Yeah, when it comes to reading energy, whether you want to read it for other people or yourself, I mean, the biggest pictures that get lit up for me are just straight up invalidation every day. I'm like, oh,
yeah, that was probably my biggest. And that is a product of like being in a female body as a sensitive being, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like it's just, as a sensitive being in any body, not just a female body, it's a recipe for trauma on the planet right now. If you're sensitive, you're going to be traumatized on this planet. There's really no way around it. There's a lot of really imbalanced energy on the planet. And when you're sensitive, you naturally see the right flow of energy. That's what you're being sensitive to. You're being sensitive to the energy that's not flowing properly, that has a block or a distortion in it. Ooh.
Yeah, that's great.
Chills. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one.
That's what sensitivity is. Yeah.
You're like, wow.
And there's a lot of distortion on this planet by design, I will say. Which, yeah, we could go deep down rabbit holes, but we won't do that, because I think today's conversation is really about the fact that, like, we are not told this all the time, but if something doesn't feel good, it's not yours. And beyond that, there are ways to work with that experience of, like, this energy, this emotion doesn't feel good in my body. A really common picture that gets plastered over, like, all of, especially I think people in America, we're both Americans and we're in the States, and there's a big there's a big wad of pictures over all of us. And if you experience it when you leave the United States. I just went to Mexico for the first time, and I was like, oh my God, I can just, like, be a psychic medium. Like, in America, there's a lot of very subtle, energetic, religious restriction on being a psychic medium.
You wouldn't say. You would not say.
Yeah, you wouldn't say. And I think one of the pictures, especially in the States, that gets put on us is that it's not safe to change energy. I see that so often in people's spaces. If you change this energy, you're going to die.
Oh my God,
If
yes.
you transmute energy, you're going to die. And the other thing that I see in people's spaces, specifically beings in female bodies, is that changing energy is the most natural thing that they can do on this planet. So
I've experienced this like firsthand. So, there's this weird programming of, like, stay in it, stay in your sadness. You don't have the capacity to move this. This is who you are. And yeah, building we have to build our intuitive awareness in order to kind of match our emotional awareness that doesn't speak to us in the same language.
Yes.
So I've seen this a lot, and it's amazing when you have the tools and you show someone, you teach someone the tools, how they kind of intellectualize, they go back and forth. I can't do this. I mean, the amount of times I obviously live with a very psychic human being as well. And the amount of times where we're both like, "Oh, just move it, go run your energy for 5 minutes and this is going to be gone." But, we still get stuck in our own spaces of, like, we have to hold on to this. We have to suffer is really that energy.
Yeah.
And, I say this because you've told me this, but because I've seen it, like, our energy, because I've seen it and I've experienced it, our energy in our body feels good.
Amazing. And there's so many,
Oh my God.
there's levels to, like, feeling good in the body, because there's absolutely the level of, like, actual physical well-being and the physiology of the body, not just the psychic emotional state of the body as well. But often when you start to work the energies that tell you that you can't change your emotional state, you can't change your energetic frequency, those disruptions in the body, which, like, I think for this audience, the biggest issues are going to be gut health, maybe some brain fog is what I'm seeing right now as I just kind of tune into that space. And irritability is coming through very strong also. And inflammation in the body is a really big indicator that there's an energetic imbalance happening somewhere. And you're like, damn it, Olivia.
Don't tell me about the
what are we working in our next session? Yeah. And I, in my move, I noticed a lot of inflammation. I was getting, like, really lightheaded when I would stand up, and I was like, what is going on? And then I just realized, I've been unpacking nonstop for like 5 days, and I should probably, like, slow down and give my body a break. So sometimes inflammation is just stress. But if it's chronic inflammation, if it's chronic tension, these are all indications that we are managing something that is not ours. And that's when it starts to get really energetic, because you're managing an energy. And we can get into, like, the ancestral implications of that, because we manage entire belief systems for our families sometimes. because we love our families and we don't want to like step outside of that energy, because it can be very disruptive for the family unit when we kind of break that agreement. But it's very real that ancestral energies can cause illness in the body that doesn't make sense and that doctors won't understand, because it's chronic and it's based on the energy that's showing up in your space.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm just like over here,
Whew.
like getting such a visual on the
Yeah,
current state of inflammation in my body and what it's
yeah, and you're
from.
just like seeing all the little pinpoints of
I'm
your
just like,
ancestors.
yeah, I am for sure. I'm like, oh shit, do I have an ancestral agreement to hold the emotional how would I explain this? To hold the emotionality for every person I engage with. It's a feminine,
Mm-hmm.
ancestral.
To give them the lens into their emotions.
Yep. And I'm
Yeah.
just like, ew. And it's not even, I'm just like, I'm like, oh, I'm tired. Like, let me put this down.
Yes. Exhaustion is a big one. Yeah.
So heavy. So yeah, just looking at that right now, I have some contracts to update later.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
know, when we have the ability, like these tools to change it, our minds kind of fuck with us, right? Like
Yes.
it's that program. It's like, can I really do this? I think we were working in energy, Kimber and I, and we had no idea what we were doing. Well, we did, but we were like, wait, can we like update the karma here? And spirit was like, yeah, of course. And we were like, but like, didn't we agree to this? And like there was this whole moment. And um you are powerful in your body and you have free will. You get to do what you want. I don't want to even say that. I don't even want to say that because so many of us are influenced by other energies in our space. That's not actually us like exhibiting our free will. It's
Yes.
the energy.
Well, you're kind of touching on this layer of energy where we were indoctrinated into a lot of funky agreements. Again, also being in America, there's a lot of weird agreements that we were born into. I'm not gonna lie, and they relate directly to our ability to actualize our free will, because our free will is there. It's not a question. It's a question of, can you move through all the energy of the agreements that are telling you that you can't have your free will?
Exactly.
And there's really no shortcut to that. But I will say the quickest path is to like radically prioritize yourself. And I don't think that that will reach the wrong audience, because of course that statement could be so misconstrued and
Totally.
misused by people who would who just wouldn't that statement wouldn't be for them. I'm speaking to the people who have a history of literally not knowing who they are, because they are so aware of other people's energy that they don't even know what it feels like to be in their body. That's who I'm talking to. You are the people who it's time to like really radically prioritize putting yourself first, because for the people who like have spent such a like an entire lifetime being more aware of others and outside energy and being out of their bodies, when that person puts themselves first, the entire collective around them shifts to reflect, and it's very powerful. And going back to just speaking about sensitivity, when you are sensitive, it means that you're incredibly energetically malleable. It means that things can shift very quickly for you. And that also means that when you shift, a lot around you shifts, because you have lived a life of not recognizing your power, because you didn't know that if you changed, everything else would change. You thought that everything else changed and then you changed. It's actually that you're just so sensitive, that the line has been so fine between what is yours and what is not yours. And the shortcut, if we could say that there was one, is putting yourself first and coming into your body. Which often means processing a lot of pain and processing a lot of past moments. And it's traumatic to be sensitive on this planet right now, and that's why you hire people like us.
Mood. Yeah. I mean, my spiritual awakening started as like, how do I get up into the ethers? How do I connect with the higher dimensions? Right. I was like, literally living in the angelic dimensions because of the trauma that was happening to me in my life. And right before I started working with you, it was like nervous system. It was like my body was like finally like, okay, essentially, do you want to die? Because you clearly don't want to be here.
Right.
And so I like to call it the descension process.
I like that.
The spiritual beings who are listening to this podcast are sensitive, and you're not really getting out of your body. There's so much like information about ascension, right? Like going up. The process for me was getting into my body because there was so much pain emotionally. That's why so many of us numb, because we don't want to do it. The first layer of emotional pain is almost enough to like dysregulate you for like 5 days. So having someone to be able to help
make fun of you while you do it.
Exactly. No, straight up. Amusement to me, I think when I came to, I have always had a sense of humor, but I was like, why is Olivia so funny? Like, how is she laughing? She's literally like, wow, yeah, there's this huge being in your space. Oh my God. And she's just laughing. And I'm over here horrified. I'm like, and she's just like so neutral.
You're like, I have beings. Everyone has beings. Guys, if you have any questions, everyone has beings. I clear them out of my space every day. It's a very real part of being a psychic medium.
I say hello to beings too much for my liking. You want to know my truth. And they're just getting more vivid. And I'm like, wow, what did I do to myself? Like, what is
I
this?
really honestly believe that the future is moving towards a collective awareness around how much we are affected by energy without bodies. So I'm ready. I'm ready.
I feel like I've been training for this.
Yeah, I'm like, when people start waking up and really being like, none of this makes sense. It's like, yeah, because you can't see what's actually affecting you. You can only feel it, which is why emotional sovereignty is so incredibly important at this time, because we're in a spiritual war. There is spiritual warfare going on, and I don't say that to like create fear at all. I say it to validate that feeling that you've been having, that like now is the time to claim your power. Now is the time to own your experience of being in your body and to get into spaces where you can really be validated in like the fact that if it doesn't feel good, it's not yours and you can change it.
Hold on, let me just think. Like so many humans are waking up, and it's beginning with this recognition of like, I'm empathic. I can feel things. I feel when something's off. But there's this disconnect with the trust. And so, being in a clairvoyant training program, I'm like, oh, I'm about to see. I do see, obviously, but it's a trip.
And I will say with the trust, this is why I like working with your emotions. And I didn't learn to work with my emotions until after my clairvoyant training, which was interesting. Because clairvoyant training is very much, separate yourself from that emotional experience of the body so that you can see, which is incredibly valuable. But as not just a teacher and a psychic who's, professionally working with people, as a human, like my emotions are so important. And I will say, like, on that note of trust, learning to work with the emotions is one of the most powerful ways that you can build that trust with yourself, because you start to build this response of like, okay, body, if you're saying that something's off, then it's off. And like, it may not be what you think is off. This is where it gets tricky, because as soon as you're like, okay, something feels off, your mind is gonna like create a list of like all the things that have been off in past moments where you felt that emotion, and it's probably not any of that. So you can't, like, the best thing to do for yourself if you're building that trust is to trust the feelings, don't get stuck in the mind, and just like kind of keep, it's like a mantra, trust the feelings, don't get stuck in the mind, trust the feelings, validate the feelings, make your choices based on your feelings. Don't listen to the mind.
Just like the mantra for life is like, just don't listen to the mind.
Yeah, the mind is beautiful. It's a beautiful place.
She's
It
gorge.
receives so much incredible information, and we are so silly to think that that information is coming from us. Like
It's literally
not.
not. If you
You're picking up
ever,
on so many different things in your thoughts, your
right?
feelings. Your feelings are where you can own the information that is coming through. And our feelings have been incredibly hijacked. If you think about scrolling through TikTok and like one video causes you to feel one way, and the next video you're crying, and then you're laughing, and then you're like horrified. If you feel like in those instances you're really out of control and you get really spun out after experiencing the emotional journey that TikTok can take you on, there's some work to do.
Stop. You know that I've had like such a weird couple weeks getting really locked into TikTok, and
that's been coming up for a lot of people lately.
it's been really
I think we're just processing something
strange.
big.
Yeah, I think it's been
Because I see
really
that
interesting.
when people are like avoiding an emotion, moving something through, I often hear like, oh, I've just like been scrolling a lot on TikTok. And that's okay. Like when I'm trying to avoid an emotion, I smoke weed. Like it's all good. Like we are doing our best here on planet Earth. But
Yeah.
it's nice to have the awareness of like, oh, I just, binged TikTok for 5 hours. I might be trying to avoid processing an emotion.
Oh, my literal body is like, my eyes will start burning. It's like 2 hours. I know. I'm like, ma'am, I set like little timers now, and I'm like, okay,
Sometimes I
more.
get the person who pops up on my feed that's like, hey, you've been watching TikToks for too
I'm like,
long.
I'm like, shut up. I'm like, I'll do
No,
what
I
I want.
always feel very roasted. I'm like,
Roasted.
throw my phone across the room.
I never do. I literally look at her. I'm like, you think that I don't know that? I'm like,
Okay.
continue on. Yeah, I'm, but in order to shift an energy or move into a new behavioral pattern, shame does not work. So
I just read that in a book today. It
yeah,
really doesn't. You might be able to force yourself to change for a little bit out of guilt and shame, but it's not going to last.
yeah, you got to call in the frequency for me of love. So I'm like, okay, I love myself so much. Is this really supporting myself? And it's like, no, I don't shame myself. I laugh at myself. I literally roast myself because I'm like, I'm literally teaching people how to emotionally alchemize. And sometimes I get lost in 2 hours of TikTok because girl, I feel things way too deeply. And I'm like, I gotta go. But I have shifted now to something else that I love that helps me regulate, which is reading, which is also a interesting coping mechanism.
So no, that's so good. It's just so good for your brain in this day and age, I think,
Yeah.
to like physically read a book because we're so inundated with like just a lot of stimulus that our eyes are not we just haven't like what's the word, evolved enough to like shift to this new change of like we're constantly inundated with like video. So I think reading is so good. I want to go back to something, you said you call in love when you're working to shift that emotion. I want to say that like most people's relationship to love is not great.
It's punishment.
What we think love is not really the actual vibration of love. So I find that if like that's not working, like it's we've been given a lot of examples of like bypassing love in our life, like loving something, but like loving it to the extent that it works for us, right? So I find that acceptance is a really, really potent energy to work with when you're wanting to shift something, because as soon as you accept like the fullness of like, fuck, I feel like I am a piece of shit who's never going to accomplish anything, who is like so worthless, blah, 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 whatever. I mean, whatever your narrative is. I'm not good at anything. As soon as you just accept that, you're like, okay, maybe that's what my life is. I'm just a worthless piece of shit. I'm never going to accomplish anything. If you can really accept that and relax into it, it's immediately going to change. Because the only guaranteed in life is that energy changes. And that goes back to like female beings are so gifted at changing energy. We're so gifted at seeing what needs to change because we have a womb. And most of us have been born into structures, systems, realities that tell us that to change energy equals death, persecution, punishment, like whatever. So it's
just
like
a few fun things.
This conversation is like, there's so many levels to it, and it's also literally like a lifetime of work. And that's why you're like, I teach people this, but I still struggle with it, because we're reprogramming generations and generations of ancestors who thought that they had no other way. And they literally did at the time. They didn't have the resources. They didn't have social media. They didn't have like the opportunity to, in this day and age, we do really have a unique opportunity to create something from nothing if we want to work hard enough at it, if we want to show up with enough dedication to it. And I think the secret sauce, and like, if you're wanting to create something from nothing, is like, you have to really love it.
I mean, you got to be dedicated AF.
You have to, it
have
has to just like burn a fire in your soul in order to like create something sustainable enough that's going to continue to like nourish you, not just now, but in the long term, which is what I think most people who start things are going for. We often just hit so much energy when we're going to create something. And by creating, I guess what I'm talking about is like a business or a brand or whatever you're wanting to create. It's often a lot of energy work, and most people don't have the tools to do that.
Oh, it's basically all energy work.
Yeah. Well, especially when you're doing what, like the businesses that we're creating, it's just literally energy work.
As somebody who has had a business without energy tools and scaled that to 6 figures and did all the fun things, building a business that's sustainable, heart-centered, based on supporting people's spiritual growth is energy work always. And
always,
you know, I always share too, I think it's really important to, as somebody who leads women, and you lead women as well, is like that transparency of like, we're not perfect in any way, shape, or form. There's no,
no. I feel like I tell you guys that in Sanctuary every week.
I live for it.
On this episode of Olivia's Really Human, I have been getting high all week, or I don't know what the thing is, but
it's transparency. It's transparency, and it's important. Like, I don't ever want to be a leader who's like, I'm perfect. I emotionally, that's a red flag as fuck to me. Like, I emotionally alchemize everything in perfect time. It's like, no, you know what? Sometimes I go back to my old coping mechanisms that aren't great, but I have the capacity to shift out of them much quicker than I used to.
Yes. And that's progress.
That's progress. And I'm happy about that. I'm like, oh, we're not eating goldfish or Annie's cheddar bunnies when we're going through crisis again.
Your coping mechanisms are the cutest.
I know, they're like such
I'm like, I've smoked so much weed this week, and Alexandria is like, I ate a loaf of bread.
No, you know it. First of all, you know that I bought a sourdough last night. You know that I did. And I had 2 slices, and it was the most magical experience of my life. And it's like, I have this incredible urge to eat. Like, my 2 coping mechanisms in life are literally a baguette, a sourdough baguette, and fucking goldfish. And I don't even like goldfish anymore, just by the way. Like, I'll taste them and my body does not resonate.
Yeah, all those chemicals.
But the cheddar, the Annie's cheddar bunnies. Ooh.
Ooh. Okay. Annie's is arguably a little less toxic.
Toxic.
Their cheese squares, oh my God, they're so good.
I will be getting
they're organic, so that's
brand nice. Deal for Annie's cheddar bunnies for regulation. But yeah, I have some not so cute, regulation ones. You're like, I smoke weed. I'm like, no, I don't speak to Mary Jane in that way. After an experience of her taking me through the lower dimensions of Earth, and it was not a fun time, and I would not recommend it.
Fair enough.
I'm like, no.
Yeah, I've had weed as a coping mechanism for such a long time that it doesn't do that to me. Even if I take long breaks from it, it's still just, I'll get real high if I take a long break. But yeah, it doesn't take it. Mushrooms will take me that deep, and so I don't do mushrooms often. But
I think one of my favorite parts of just connecting with you, every session, obviously, but you know, we got to really meet in LA, and I was able to like come to your home and like see like the behind the scenes Olivia. And I
Yeah,
was
I'm
just
nervous
like,
now.
no, I was just like, I love this. She is so human and authentic.
Oh, thank
You were like,
you.
here are my crystals.
So many crystals. I have so many fucking crystals.
Daryl was like,
It's absurd.
you were like, come into my lair.
My lair is like twice the size now,
I
by the
know,
way.
I'm
It's
so
amazing.
excited for you. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's such a good
Yeah, I really
moment.
feel like I built my brand on authenticity, even though I wasn't trying to. I literally can't not. Like, I can't not be authentic. I don't know how to not be authentic. I will say, I feel like I'm still uncovering parts of my authenticity. I'm still uncovering parts of who I am, but the best thing I ever did was like build a community based on like just the stuff that I was excited about, because now I'm just like, growing this business that is full of people who are so incredible. Like the clients that come into my space, and my business growth has been both fast and slow, but it has been the most aligned people coming in to work with me, and I wouldn't have it any other way. So I feel very grateful for having like brought that authenticity into my online space. And yeah, it is very real. Like I'm like, I don't really hide much from you guys.
No, I live for it. I'll share this story till the end of time because you're like, fuck, which one is it? You're like,
Literally. I'm
no.
like, where are we going?
You're like, no. First of all, you know, we all have our own inner authority and blah, 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 blah. But sometimes it's nice to like look at another woman, another psychic woman, and they're just living in their authenticity, and you get like a freaking healing just by witnessing them.
Yeah.
And so I remember I was like frantic about an old business that I had. Everything was collapsing. I was like, Olivia, like I need you to do a reading for this business, this energy, because fun story. We can read the energy of pretty much anything. Anyway,
Everything.
she shows up and she's in the bathtub. And she's like, the only way that I could even do this reading with you
It's a great
is
session.
from the bath. And it was so good. You were just like laying, you're like, and I was like, I fucking love you. I was like, thank you so much for that realness, because I've worked with coaches who are like with the full goddess adornments, and sometimes that's juicy. I love that. There's a
It's funny. I remember our first session, like when I start working with a client, I do an energy setting just to really look at, what they're bringing to the table, what they want to work through. And often when I read the energy, it's more clear than what they even realized that they wanted to work through. And I remember the first time that we did an energy setting, and you like showed up like dressed and ready. And I was like, I think I was like probably looking like this. And I was like, I like felt like I did something wrong for a minute. And then I was like, no, like this is good. Like we can just show up as exactly who we are. Like for a minute, I was like, oh no, is she gonna think I'm a bad mentor because I didn't dress in goddess garb for? So it's funny that.
stop. Wait, hold on.
Yeah,
What's
I never
coming
told
up
you
for
that.
me too? You never told me this. And first of all, no, there was never judgment for me. Like I was blowing through some pictures of working with my coach previous, who would
Mm-hmm.
show up, and there's nothing wrong with that. This is true to her
Yeah.
in the moment. And so I was like, okay, we're doing an opening intention. I must dress. Also, I love to serve a look. I'm a Leo. Like
No,
it's
you
just
looked great. Yes.
part of the vibe. But no, I love your authenticity. It makes me feel like I can show up to session regardless of where I'm at. I don't always have to show up as the
Yeah.
goddess. Sometimes I show up and I'm such a hot mess during session. Can we
Sometimes me
talk?
too. And
I love it.
sometimes I know when I need to reschedule. I know when it's not in the highest good. And that is something that just comes because people ask me sometimes, how do you know when it's the right time to reschedule? And it's just like literally the feeling, like it's the difference in feelings. I can tell the difference in the feeling of
Sorry, I like literally like telepathed you and you were like,
It's the difference in feeling of like, I can tell the difference in the quality of I am in resistance to whatever energy is going to get worked in this space, and I kind of don't want to do it, versus I am not well enough in my own body right now to hold space for another person. And often it's literally, if I'm feeling like about a session, it's literally just my own resistance. And I will show up and I'll tell you, you've probably had me show up and be like, I'm having a day and we're going to work this energy.
I want to talk about that because I have had so many clients not show up, and they'll text me, and I think it's so funny because they'll be like, I'm having an emotional day before I have an emotional exploration class. It's donation based. It's every other Wednesday. The next one's August 6th or something. And September 6th. Can't even keep it together. It's Virgo season. Thank you. And I'll have clients text me, right? And there'll be such resistance. And I'm like just reading the energy, and I'm like, I want to talk about how do we explain and articulate that resistance to showing up? Because when we work energy, there's likely going to be like a transformation occurring or a shift, right?
Yes.
And so what's kind of happening? Well, how do you see that energetically, that you can explain, like what happens when you come to show up working with an energy coach? Like, what is that energy?
Yeah, well, it's different for everyone, but I would say the umbrella statement of the energy would be resistance. And one way that I started to help people work through this is I will send messages, even when I was doing my donation-based breathwork classes. I would send an email an hour before and say, reminder, like you signed up for this, just so you know, it's very normal to the hour before, even the morning of, start to work the energy. Like you're already moving the energy. You're probably already experiencing things that are going to, and this shows up the more you do this work, the more you see this happening. The day of a big energy work day, you'll start seeing in your physical life the reflection of the energy that's going to clear and release. And it's really easy because, again, like we've been indoctrinated into the system that says you can't change energy. So when you start hitting that uncomfortable energy, it's really easy to get stuck in the idea that like it would be easier to just not face that energy than to move through it. It's not easier. I promise it's not easier to stay stuck in the energy. It sucks. And it's probably just going to stay there until, you book the next session or you go to the next class. I really think that the reason that happens is because of what we've kind of been talking about, where we have really been shown this picture, and this is a very religious programming, this picture that we can't change energy ourselves. We can't change things ourselves. The power is out of our hands. That kind of like, put it all in God's hands type of thinking that runs very, 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 very deep in American culture and American belief mindset. Even if you weren't raised in a religious family, it's woven deep into the fabric of our country. This idea that like there's a higher power orchestrating things. Really, that's woven deeply into the fabric of the entire world. And I do believe that that's true, while also believing that I'm working with that higher power to create what my vision was when I came into this body. And most of the stuff that you have to work through to create that vision, which every time you show up to a class where you're working energy, you're creating more of the vision, right? You're anchoring more of the vision. You're clearing more of the energy that's around the vision that you originally came here to create. Often that energy is ancestral, societal. It's your parents. It's the freaking kids who hurt your feelings when you were in middle school. It's not yours. So what you're experiencing, what your clients are experiencing when they experience all that resistance and coming to a session is like, it's like the question of like, what am I going to give my sovereignty to? Like other people's energy, or am I going to claim it and decide that I can shift this energy? I can shift this emotion. I'm going to show up and I can do this. Like I can handle this. And that's, there's so many levels to this, because there is a level of it where like when you're doing deep energy work, your nervous system may not be able to keep up. Your body may not be able to keep up. So there may be like a foundational period, if you're working with an energy practitioner, of being very gentle and also regulating the nervous system at the same time that you're doing this potent transformational energy work. It's a delicate balance so that you aren't just like spinning out and, you know, getting stuck in like one of, you know what, I'm not going to be offensive, spinning out. So you're not spinning out.
Yeah. It's truly that energy. So you're not staying in your stuckness or spinning out. There is a finesse to energy work. It's like, okay, I'll notice a client and I'll read their energy. And then I'm like, okay, like, do you have the body capacity and nervous system capacity to hold this activation? And like, where are we at? And, you know, their higher selves are connecting and they're, you know, they have their sovereignty. So,
yes.
I'm just LOLing the whole time because I'm like, you know, I went in hard as fuck.
Yeah. Yeah, you pretty much always dive right in. And that, I think, is, I'm the same way.
What's wrong with me, Olivia? Everyone else around me is like literally like what's wrong with me? Am I like a fucking weird person who loves pain?
No, I think a part of it, a level of it is, and we've talked about this, a level of it is trauma and how you were modeled to be worthy, right? Like, you have a picture that says, if I keep showing up, then I'm the best. So
fucking roasted as fuck. God, don't well stand by.
Sorry, I had to read it. It was just there. So that makes it easier for you to show up, I think, right? So on a level, it's a trauma response, but it's also just because this work is, you know, your spirit recognizes it as truth.
True. Yep. There's this calling to me, like, you know, I've done so many different trainings and things, and I always was like, ugh, like, I don't know, I don't need to show up. It would even be safe for me to say that I quit so many things.
Yeah.
And one of the greatest accomplishments of my life, and proving to myself that I love myself. Oh God, ew. To prove to myself that I love myself. Okay, cancel clear that statement coming out of my mouth. But
accepting that you love yourself.
Accepting that I love myself, but accepting that I can, you know, follow through with what's important to me.
Yes.
Was showing up to every one of our sessions. I don't think I missed one session.
No, never.
And also, for the most part, I'm also in Olivia's group, Container Sanctuary. I think I've done almost every activation besides like 4. You want to know what they are? Witch wound.
Stop, you haven't done the witch wound yet?
Stop. Punishment is the second one. The third one,
I did name a class, punishment.
Yeah, witch wound, punishment, and then the 2 social media ones I haven't done. So there's like 4 out of how many activations are there for the past year, for a month? Me trying to achieve
a lot, over 100.
So many.
Over 100.
Showing up to every energetic transformation, though I never wanted to. There was a time I was like, I'm quitting Sanctuary. You were like,
yeah, I remember that. I was like,
do you remember
your pictures?
You were like, I was like, I'm quitting it. I don't want to, I'm like, I'm done with this. You were like, and then the next week I got the best healing of my life. And I was like, I'm just gonna quit. And you were like,
I was like, okay. No, I think I was very neutral. I was like,
you were so neutral.
I was like, if you feel like that's the right move, like, you should blow your pictures.
You're like, you should blow your pictures around engaging with women.
Yeah.
We get lit
around
up
other women's pain.
I know. I'm like, but yeah. Wow, what a fun picture that I have to prove myself.
Yeah, you're gonna be the best if you show up to all the classes.
But you know, it's true. No.
Exactly.
You know that part of it.
True. It is very much like, you know, the psychic training is the practice. And for me, like, I made it through traditional schooling because I had to, because there was someone there telling me you have to go to class at 7 a.m. and you come home at 3, and like, you have to do your homework. Like, I did that. But as soon as I was out of high school, I just was floating. I tried to go to community college like several times. I would, you know, do fine, but I hated it. And I just would not go. And then I would fail. And, you know, and there just was like never anything that was like, yes, this is it, until I moved to Los Angeles and a friend told me about this intuitive training she was doing. And I was like, that could be chill. And I basically like spent the last of, like, I had no money in my bank account. And I was like, sure, I'll do the payment plan, like take all my money. And the rest is really, that was in 2017.
Can we
And the
just
rest is history.
LOL too, for anyone listening to this too, just sharing the financial portion of the trust that has to come.
Yeah.
Same. I mean, I have a degree in psychology, but it was based on me trying to prove to my father that I could get through school.
Totally.
Yeah,
That makes
like
sense. Yeah.
it was never really
That
about
tracks.
learning it. I mean, there was
Yeah.
always this deep drive to be a healer. My mom was an alcoholic. I was like, I'm going to be a drug and alcohol counselor. I was like, no, it's not it for your nervous system. We're not doing that. And so I failed out of my freshman year of community college. I didn't even show up. I was partying so hard.
Same. Yeah.
I was like, no,
Pretty
I'm
much.
just going to rage. And then, yeah, it really didn't click too. And even talking about like our prefrontal cortex's development, like we're not even like, I
Mhm.
learned so much better now at 29, and I'm losing my train of thought. What was I going to say?
A little bit of, well, you brought in that prefrontal cortex, and it was like, I should move energy. It was
It
like,
was like,
I
girl,
should clear unconsciousness.
could you just like clear? I'm like, girl, get on. What the fuck? I went on to a whole tangent. What did you just say?
Just talking about how nothing really made sense for me, like
Oh,
career wise. I literally worked in restaurants for 13 years, and I was great at it because being a server is neurodivergent as fuck. Like there's just constant moving parts. You're managing yourself. Like that worked for me. And it was literally the only thing that worked for me until I found psychic training. And then I was like, well, I guess this is it. And it's worked so far.
it's literally history. Yeah, when I've had so many readings done. My boudoir photography career was similar to what I wanted to do, but I just had this realization that I was actually trans channeling during my things,
Oh,
because
I'm
I just
sure.
did a photo shoot recently, and I was like literally trans channeling, and I was like,
You're like, oops.
oh shit. And I was like, what? I was like, came out of the shoot recently, and I was like, why am I so tired? Like, what the fuck? And I
Interesting.
was like, oh, you were trans channeling. And I was like, that's why people would come to me for these, they would actually get a healing.
That makes sense.
And I was like, oh. And then I've been so pushed away from photography from that because I was so drained. I didn't know how to run that energy through my body.
Yeah.
But I want to get at when I connected with you, it was the first time I've ever had a neutral reading.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
As
I
someone
remember
who's,
you being like, you're so
I
neutral.
was like, what the
Like, I worked very hard for this.
You're like, I
And
know.
also, like, I'm not like that in my normal life. Like, Terrell would be like, Olivia is not a neutral person.
No, same. Like,
It's a skill. It's a skill. It's just like a doctor would be in like their, technical practice. Like, they're gonna have a certain way of being with their patients. It's the same as in my practice as a psychic. Like, my neutrality is something that I turn on when I'm reading someone's energy.
right. Yeah. Do not come into my house. I am not neutral. I can be, but I'm not for the most part. But yeah, I was like, okay. And then energy matters. I was like, this is like coming home
Yeah.
to every part of me. And then I was like, oh, transmuting program, great. Mock that up. Awesome. But oh, to speak about the money thing. Okay.
Yeah.
When I first started working with Olivia, I was getting separated from my husband. I had no job, like literally like moving and transitioning. Um, it was an investment, and I was sitting there and I was like, to be honest, what crossed my mind, I could invest in myself or I could die. So like what like what is money? Like what is money
Yeah.
when it's like your literal like, and not to bring it into a survival place. I really wanted to do it. I followed, you know, my process. I rode my emotional wave on it. I was like, okay, this is something I really, really want to do. And I vetted Olivia, obviously, with the breath work. And I was like, yes, this is it. And still things came up in my mind were like, you can't do this, you can't afford it, blah, 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 blah. So moving through that resistance, I made all of my money back that I invested from the first container when we did, I'm assuming it was the sacral center. could have been the root. We did a money activation and I made 4K that week.
We
Just
did a
saying.
money act.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I remember
Yes.
that.
Remember, I made $4,000 and I was like, my
Yes.
rent at the time was like $2,200 for the studio space that I had. It was
Yeah.
so expensive. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. Add a monthly thing. And Spirit was just
Yeah.
like, do it. And
I remember that.
I was like, oh my God. And even now, sometimes I'm like, I don't even know how this is going to happen, but the payments work. They just come out. I don't know. It just happens.
Yeah, that I find that that's the case with a lot of people because it's an alternative thing to like work with someone who's like, I'm going to help you be in your body and own your energy field. Like it's new, it's a little edgy, it's a little spicy. It might not be something that makes sense to like your logical brain, which I think is very much the part of us that dictates our money. And I find, yeah, that like it's common that people are just like, I don't know, like the money just worked, like the money just came. Once I committed, the money came. And I think that that is true of most, and without like spiritually bypassing, because like it's also the money came for you because you had already built a six-figure business,
Right.
and a client came in through that previous uh, outlet. So it's
Right.
like the money always comes when we're working to do the things that we need to do to support ourselves. And we may not always know how that's going to play out, but money can come in so many weird ways. And that definitely happens when people step into container with me because they're like, I'm not sure how I'm going to make this happen. I know that it's the right choice. I know that this is what I want for myself. And like, they just never look back.
Yeah. I think too, like I did have that channel so the money could flow to me.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely still open, but actually another fun story. I was in California and my energy training is like you pay for 3 months at a time. And I was like, oh shit, like it's another $1,500. I'm like, okay, great. I'm sitting just going through my California initiation, which is me just like healing massive family wounds and ancestral karma. And my grandma just like hands me an envelope full of money. And I'm like, my grandparents to me like supported me financially before. So, but also had a weird control thing. So this was very strange. And then my uncle handed me an envelope of like $1,000. And I was like,
What?
he literally handed, and I was like so psychic. I'm standing there talking to him and he's like, wait a minute. And then like before he even turned, I like got the image that he was about to go get me money. And I was like, whoa, what? Like, that's really weird. And he's like, this is for you. And I was like thinking it was $100, you guys. I was like, oh, okay, this is so sweet. Like, I'm so like literally they gave me the exact amount of money.
Wow.
It was
That
really
is
weird.
wild.
It
Yeah.
is. And I'm all like, okay, we're getting to the next time I have to pay. Like,
We're like, yeah, gonna need a little
just like send it.
extra. Yeah, and that happens for me personally too. Like when I just invested in the biggest business mentorship that I've ever invested in. I'm
Really?
shitting myself a little bit to be honest. Yeah. And I know that the money is gonna come. And
Yeah.
I also have built, it's like such a fine line with money of like, make sure that you're not overextending your nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
And also, if you know that it is the right move for you, the money is going to come.
Yeah.
Like I have, a foundation of monthly recurring income that I'm very comfortable with. And I want to scale more, which is why I've invested in this business mentor. I'm not necessarily making the money to reflect the investment in this business mentor at this point, but I trust it. Like I trust it. I've done my research. I've sat with it for a while and I'm ready. So it's like these investments that we make in ourselves and things, especially because I'm assuming most of your audience is, sensitives or specifically like females.
Yep.
Especially as women who like we have an ancestral history of like not necessarily being the ones with the money. So these decisions that we make to give to ourselves and to our own well-being, they're, I mean, it's a disruptor. It's a disruptor in your family line to invest in things like this.
I know my family's literally paying for it. Do you not find that to be the funniest thing?
Yeah, that's kind of
As I'm
amazing.
receiving an envelope full of cash from my uncle, he's also like, your brother won't talk to you because you're psychic. And I'm like, wow, thank you. I will be paying for my psychic training with this. And I'm so appreciative of it. Like, I'm
Oh my
so
God.
grateful to be, but it felt weirdly like the first time I was supported in that way. So it was just such a big healing for me.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah.
I think to just note that we can receive money if we build out the channels for it to flow with us. So of
Mhm.
course, having that foundation, like for me, like I'm a coach, I can just be like, okay, I'm opening sessions. There's more ease there to step into, like open up the channel of like, okay, spirit, I need money. Like I'm going to receive it this way. And then kind of like detach, because spirit doesn't, it's like,
Yeah.
how are you open to receiving money, and how will money channel to you?
Yeah.
But yeah, I love a risk, not even a risky investment, but like one that makes your heart sing and you're like,
Educated risk.
how the
Yeah.
fuck am I gonna afford this? Because I
Yeah.
remember I remember, oh, I've paid so much money for coaching, honestly. Not with you, but like I've made investments before. So I think the first one you
Yeah.
ever make with a coach is always like, but then the next
Yeah.
one you're like, okay, I understand. I've been in a container before. I know the growth. And then you're like,
Yes.
okay, cool. Like set
Yes.
it. Like when we did our Olivia does like you coach for 6 months and you'll have like an after.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, this is the easiest yes to my fucking life.
Kind of at this point that I have built out, like I have like clients who are working with me, continuing to work with me, that I love, and I'm not really going to be taking on that many more in the capacity that I've currently been taking on clients. I'm actually so I'll just talk about a couple of the things that I have coming up. I guess this
Yes,
feels like the right
I'm
opportunity.
ready.
I'm actually looking for 3 people who are wanting to go into a year of mentorship with me and
Mm,
really commit to like the long term of like the big vision, entire lifestyle shift. I'll be talking more about that soon. The thing that's coming up the most quickly is my new group space, which is going to be essentially a teaching space of everything that I've learned in my one-on-one mentorship with people like Alexandria and all of my other clients, kind of taking the biggest themes that I've seen in that space and putting it into a group space where we can all kind of work through that energy together. It will be obviously more financially accessible in a group space. And it's all about your emotions. It's called emotional sovereignty. This is the first time that I am dropping the name. So if
wait,
anyone is interested in that, you can find me on Instagram and TikTok at oliviarae.love.
I mean the exclusive.
That's why I was like, let's podcast.
I literally I couldn't get her on the podcast.
I was like, I'm
This
ready.
woman
Let's
was
go.
traveling to Mexico, and I was like, you're going to be on this podcast.
Moving.
She's like, oh, do you want to do the podcast? I was obviously, yes. Whenever you want to be on the podcast, I'm always down to sit and chat with you. But the Alexandria Kenyon exclusive, because I have an in with the Olivia Rae, just so you know, that's going to be
Emotional
a really,
sovereignty.
really, really potent program. I'm so
I'm really
excited. And
excited.
I'm assuming themes of self-worth.
It was originally called Worthy, actually,
Yeah.
this group. And then I kept getting deeper and deeper into like, how do I help people anchor this knowing that they are worthy? Because that is the biggest issue that all of my clients have, is not believing in themselves, not believing themselves to be innately worthy. And it all comes down to this concept of emotional sovereignty, of developing that trust with your own emotional state and building the tools to validate to yourself that you can shift it. When something doesn't feel good, it's not yours and you can shift it. And I also believe this skill set to be the foundation of working with clairvoyant training as well. And like I said, I did my clairvoyant training without emotional awareness. So you can definitely do it, but it was uncomfortable. I wish that I had had this type of a space to really get to know myself deeply before I stepped into that clairvoyant training and started working through all those levels of energy. So that's why I
Yeah.
created it.
I definitely have an advantage having had worked with you for 6 months one-on-one
Yeah.
prior to going. I mean, you're learning the tools. It's all being kind of integrated before. So, I get to Energy Matters. I'm like, I know how to do a grounding cord.
You're like, everything's practice,
yeah,
which
everything is
so
practice.
powerful. Yeah.
Exactly. So, that is going to be so great. Oh, hold on. Gotta take this in. Okay. So what is going on with Sanctuary? Where is that at?
Yeah. So Sanctuary is actually, I haven't done a great job of promoting this, but Sanctuary is going to be transitioning into a space that's more exclusive. So you can only enter it by joining the group programs. So you can only enter Sanctuary by joining Emotional Sovereignty beginning September 1st. I might extend that a little bit just because I have been moving and I haven't talked about it much. And I think by the time this airs, it'll be past that anyway. So, but Sanctuary is going to be included in your emotional sovereignty membership. So Sanctuary is currently my group space. We meet about once per week and we just really work energy and really like practice being in our bodies. Sanctuary is going to become a closed container. So those that are already in it are in it. And those that join emotional sovereignty will be given access to Sanctuary for 6 months. And then at the point where the next program comes in, they can either decide to join that program, which will give them another 6 months in Sanctuary. And stuff is evolving, but it's definitely transitioning out of a monthly container and into something that's a little bit deeper and more intimate.
I'm so excited.
I'm so excited.
I love Sanctuary, you guys. If you're interested in having some group support, it's incredible. Yeah. It's an incredible space.
I love it too. It's really helped me like just become so confident in who I am as a teacher, which has been really special with like the most amazing group of people. So Sanctuary is so Emotional Sovereignty is a program in Sanctuary, if that makes sense. Yeah. And then when Emotional Sovereignty ends, we'll have about 2 months on the back end of that with just the people who are in Sanctuary and Emotional Sovereignty. And then we'll start to bring more people in. And I'm not exactly sure what that's going to look like.
Oh, she's on a journey.
Yeah, we're on a journey.
I'm like,
just creating from our souls.
I'm
like, how many exclusives do I want to give you? Because there's.
Can I pause it and then you can give them to me and then we'll say bye.
I'll give the people this one.
Oh, she's teasing us.
So that they can know to just follow me on social media because Psychic Training 2023 is all I'll say.
How dare you drop this here? That is a little treat. You just dropped
it. Yes, I'm putting together a psychic training.
Oh, you are? Oh,
yeah. So yeah, lots coming. So
are
definitely
you
follow
kidding
me if you're interested in anything that we've talked about today.
I want to do your psychic training, but like, I won't. It's a little bit too late.
Don't have FOMO. Yeah, no, it's you're right on track.
I'll be deep on a trance journey by then. Wow, so exciting. Would highly recommend. What do I want to say about this? Sanctuary is really, really supportive because, and I'm not sure if this is transitioning or not, but it's for beings in female bodies. And, our energy being in a female body runs a little bit differently than the male body. And so what an amazing space. At least for me, I can speak from my own experience. I can go really, really deep when Olivia holds space because there is this, emotional safety.
And we've also, we've worked together, so you trust me.
True.
I'm a pretty trustworthy person, though, I won't lie.
You honestly are.
I have like I have like a level of integrity when it comes to working with people's energy fields that is like annoying for me. It's great for everyone else. It's like annoying for me, which what I mean by that is like this is a good example actually, because when I moved, I was exhausted and I had sessions a couple of the days right after I moved. And because I had the sessions, I had to take care of myself because I was like, I refuse to work with people from an empty vessel. Like, that's just not it. But it's almost like to the point where like I wasn't taking care of myself until I had client sessions, which is like something that I need to work on. But I have a very high level of integrity in when people trust me with their spiritual growth, because we live on a planet where our spiritual development has been so freaking hijacked and just like manipulated, and we've been so separated from the truth, which is just that you have your own source of energy all the time, and it's constantly available to you. You can change energy, you can transmute it, you can ground, you can shift the moment that you're in. Often it's just working through everyone else's energy that doesn't want you to.
There's so much of that energy. We're talking about your mom, your dad, your
Grandma.
babysitter who gave you the wrong pasta noodles. God
Yes.
damn it.
Your
your grandma
who was annoyed that she had to take care of you.
God, your dog who bit you on the toe. No, I'm kidding. Okay. Olivia Rae, thank you for being here on this podcast. It's always such a pleasure to connect with you. I'm like, so
thank you so
thank you
much
for being in this
I'm
bugging body.
So glad I didn't nip slip on today's call.
Even if you did, I think the universe would have supported it.
Thank you for listening to Conscious Connection, the podcast. We want to remind you that any statements or opinions shared on this podcast are from our own experiences or that of our guests, and we invite you to take what resonates and leave what doesn't. If you love our show and want to connect with us further, please reach out through our website or Instagram linked in the show notes. We're excited to announce our group program Metamorphosis will be launching in the fall. To learn more, please go to alexandriakenyon.com/metamorphosis. See you next time.